researchers discovered that it takes exactly 15 minutes for your average human to enter the flow state, the ultimate state of productivity, performance, and consciousness. This is why this video is exactly 15 minutes long. It is your time to achieve the flow. Because Dr. Dan Zakaria, a highly respected expert in cognitive optimization, and definitely not the same guy narrating this video, found out that viewers who go full screen experience a 34% increased chance of entering the flow state. You are now entering the flow. Part number 1. Preparing the mind and understanding. You see, there are 5 triggers for flow. Number 1 is novelty. Number 2 is concentration. Number 3 is unpredictability. Number 4 is awe, and number 5 is complexity. These are the things that instantly push your brain into flow. They affect your environment or your experience in the current moment. Now, there are also 5 motivators to flow. These are all the long-term internal drivers that make you keep wanting to come back to the same task. And the 5 motivators to flow are the following. Number 1 is curiosity. Number 2 is passion. Number 3 is purpose. And number 4, autonomy. Number 5, mastery. These are everything that shape your mindset and your identity. Now, flow is a very interesting thing, and we all know how good it has felt to just be sitting at our desk, wanting to do something, then all of a sudden, 6 hours shoot by, you don't even notice the time, and you're just super dialed, super locked in, super focused, and you got so much work done, and it also felt so good while you were getting the work done. Now, that is the simple consequence of being able to channel the flow state on command. And it's not just some mystery that you can never tap into. It is a proven science, and if you understand the science, which is why I made this video based upon research, you can actually tune yourself and change your environment and change these triggers so that you can predictably channel the flow state whenever you need to. Now, let's talk about the science of flow state in terms of brainwaves. You see, we have 3 modes of consciousness, which means 3 brainwave states. Number 1 is beta, number 2 is alpha, and number 3 is gamma. Each of these brainwave states, once you're in them, they feel different than the other. Some are slower, some are faster, some are more relaxed, more calm, some are more hyperactive and reactive to your surroundings. So the beta waves, they explain the normal thinking mode, and that includes lots of thoughts and distractions. And this is usually the state you might be in, especially before you go and actually do something. You see, before you go and do the work, and before you go and sit at your desk and start working, you're usually going to be in the beta wave. And your mind is in the beta wave actually most of the day. And this is actually not so optimal for actually focusing on what you have to do. So that brings me to the second brainwave, which is the alpha wave. You see, after a few minutes of focusing, your brain starts to relax and zone in. Your brainwaves, they sort of slow down. You start to become more resilient towards your distractions, and your environment kind of fades away in the background, and you start to gain this single focus on what you're doing. And then after the alpha waves, we have the gamma brainwaves. So this is once you're fully focused, your brain switches into a high performance mode, and that is the flow state. So the idea here is it actually takes 15 minutes of uninterrupted work to enter the flow state. And what happens in your brain during these 15 minutes is from minute 1 to minute 10 approximately, the beta waves start shifting into alpha waves. And then after another 5 minutes, the alpha waves become gamma waves. So the idea here is don't wait for inspiration. Flow starts when you set the decision, you set the conscious intent to sit at your desk and get work done. The flow state, the inspiration, and the drive that you are looking for, it doesn't come randomly. It comes when you are working, while you are already in the process of achieving your goals. So now that we understand the science of how the flow state works, let's get into the foolproof methods to enter the state. Part number 2, entering the flow. Let me give you an example. Let's say take a game of chess, right? If your opponent is so good that you can't even win a single game, and you don't even stand a chance, then you're not going to be able to enter the flow state because the challenge is way too distracting by itself. The same applies to any task, any sport, or anything really. If the challenge is way too overwhelming, you're not going to be able to enter the flow state. And at the same time, if it's way too easy, it's going to feel almost boring and monotonous. So the main goal is to achieve the perfect level of balance, drive, intention, and creativity. So when I wake up in the morning, I just drink water, I freshen up, and then I go straight to my morning meditations. This will usually take about 10 to 15 minutes. And just letting you know, a bonus thing out there, meditation is a very good way to practice shifting your brainwaves. So actually, the more you meditate over a long time, the better you get at meditating, the better you are going to get at channeling the flow state. So after my morning meditations, I read a book and I jump straight to work. This whole routine is just inviting the flow state to come in, so that when I actually sit at my desk, stare at my monitor and my screen, I actually know what I'm doing and I get work done. Whether that's editing videos, whether that's filming a video, just like I'm doing right now, or whether that's working on my community, Discipline OS, everything requires focus. Everything requires being locked in and dialed. And the idea here is you get to a point where you can do in 2 hours what everybody takes 10 hours to achieve. So the idea is creating a predictable and consistent routine that almost primes your brain and tells your brain, in this amount of time, we are going to be locked in and dialed. And that's where routine comes in. You can plan yourself out a perfect routine that doesn't have to be too overwhelming, but also not too easy, that just primes you for flow state. So flow state actually happens before you enter the flow. If you're scrolling 2 hours before you actually want to do work, it's going to be impossible to do work. You're going to be so distracted, and that just defeats the whole purpose. Like, same thing, when I wake up, I have this set routine that is always the same. It doesn't really fluctuate. Wake up, freshen up, drink water, meditate, read, go upstairs, start work, continue, and eat lunch, do the same. It's just so predictable that my mind can be like, okay, this is usually the time where the brain waves have to shift so we can accommodate for deeper focus. Pretty much, we've understood the science till now. There are a few practices, so the one I just told you. Find and dial in your routine. Make it consistent, make it predictable, journal about your routine. And now pretty much there's a concept called the 4% rule. So we talked about how you need the task in front of you to be of a certain competence level in order to feel like you are inclined and you want to do it. And that's flow. So the 4% rule is simply understanding what your current level is and just go 4% above that. Make it just 4% more difficult or more complex than it currently is. And that's the extra challenge that will really allow and force adaptation. And in order to enter the flow state, there are actually a few things that each of us have that are actually mental triggers. So for me, that might be my morning coffee. That might be something like a walk. That might be something like putting on my favorite music before I actually get to work. And it really is different for everybody. But you're gonna have some task, some trigger, like a lucky kind of charm. I'm not sure if you watched the F1 movie that released not so long ago, like a couple months back. I really love that movie. The guy Sonny Hayes, he would take a playing card and he would put it in his pocket. And that was sort of his lucky charm, right? That was the thing that actually, in a weird way, was so predictable that it got him in the flow state when he was actually racing and in the zone. For some people, that might be a coin. For some people, that might be a drink. That might be a routine. Just find what relaxes you or what hypes you up or what just gets you going. Once you find those things, you can just do those things. I mean, given that they're actually good for you and not bad for you, you can do those things to channel flow state. Before we move on to the next and almost most important part, I just want to leave you with one thing. So if a task is way too complex in front of you, it's going to be so hard to start and enter the flow state. So what you want to do in this case is break down tasks, simplify the task. So you want to break things down so simply that it becomes almost unreasonable not to take the first step. So when you tell yourself, I need to work at this time, what does that even mean, right? So define work, define exactly what you're going to do. So in order for me to actually work, I need to get up the flight of stairs. I need to sit at my desk, turn on the Wi-Fi, turn on everything I need to turn on, and then open up a Google Docs and start writing my name, start writing the title of the newsletter or whatever I'm writing, and then get started. Everybody has a different process. But the idea here is what you can't define, you can't repeat. But the thing is, we also need to set deadlines because a task is always going to expand or shrink to suit the time that is allocated for it. Which means if you give yourself 3 days to do a task, it's going to take you 3 days. If you give yourself 3 hours to finish a task, it's going to take you 3 hours. So by setting a timer and a deadline, it is just going to trigger flow so fast. So while editing videos, just like the one you're watching right now, I've come into almost a difficult problem in the last couple of months. And that was, I was spending way too much time editing a video that doesn't really take that much time to edit. And I was wasting my time and I was just feeling burnt out because at some point as well, it was like not every video was getting views. So what I started doing was I started timing. I would set a stopwatch and actually time how long it takes me to edit a video. And then over 3 weeks, 4 weeks, I would get an average. And that number is really what helps me snap myself into the focus and allocate my time wisely, know what I have to do. And that level of clarity about your task is what gets you into the flow. Just because now I know exactly how long it's going to take me to edit a video, I know the process way more than before because I set a stopwatch and I actually tracked it and I measured it. Just that alone is going to make flow state so much easier with this particular task. Part number 3, flowing deeper. Now let's talk about how the power of visualization can help you enter the flow state. So think about this. Athletes are actually the ones who use visualization the most. They visualize their win. Before they even start the game, they visualize and imagine themselves doing well. They imagine themselves going on the bus, listening to the music that they listen to, and going to the game, performing. And then at the end, feeling good about it. And an awesome book recommendation, by the way, Psycho-Cybernetics by Maxwell Maltz. It explains pretty much how most times actually your mind can't even tell the difference between real and fake. So visualization is basically a way of gaining real life experience without actually going anywhere. You could just do it from the comfort of your chair, and that's the power of visualization. You can also visualize yourself doing a task productively. You can visualize yourself entering the flow state. And that visualization is going to prime your mind and tell your mind that this is what we have to do. Because if you don't tell your mind what it has to do, it's going to tell you what to do. It's going to boss you around. And that's why you have to control the mind before it controls you. So let me tell you about the concept of tunneling shutdown. So this is the state where your brain fully ignores distractions. It doesn't care about the background. Everything just dissolves into noise. The distractions, the notifications, the tasks you have to do, you know, sometimes you're just sitting at your desk and you're thinking about, okay, the food in the oven. What am I going to eat today? What am I going to do today? Oh, I have a gym later. I have to do this later. I have to do this. Oh, I didn't do this yesterday. And all these thoughts that just come in and creep in, and these are distractions. But being in this tunneling shutdown state, it just allows your brain to just shut out all the distractions. To use this to your advantage, you're going to want to eliminate distractions, remove notifications, silence your phone, put your phone in another room. The further away your phone is from your desk and the task you want to do, trust me, the faster you're going to get into the flow state. Because if you're sitting down at your desk for 5 minutes and you're super focused, then you get a notification on your phone. All of a sudden, one thought is directed towards your phone and you're curious, what was that notification? It might be that important thing I had to do yesterday. It might be this, it might be that. And then you open your phone and it's not that thing. And now you're just disappointed and you're distracted. And now the timer resets again. Now you need to start at 0 so that you can continue and enter the flow state. So let's say you focus for another 10 minutes, but then all of a sudden you get another notification. Something else distracts you. Now you reset the timer to 0 minutes until you can go a full 15 minutes of no interruptions, no distractions. You will not enter the flow state. The timer just keeps resetting until you eliminate all the clutter, you design your space for full focus, and you're so intentional with what you have to do, when you have to do it, and the person you have to be that is doing it. And that's actually when the inner narrator turns off. You start thinking too much, action feels automatic, the criticism, the self-doubt, it's not there anymore. All of a sudden, you're left with pure focus, pure mindfulness, and you can actually enter the flow state. And how do you actually use this? You pre-commit to a task. You set yourself deadlines. You set yourself intentions. You visualize yourself doing the work, and you just allow yourself the mental space to focus. And that means giving yourself permission to fail, giving yourself permission to be imperfect, to be unprofessional, because everything starts off as not perfect and then you just make it better every single time. And the nicest thing about flow state is actually time distortion. That's either when time speeds up or it slows down, and usually it speeds up. Like, you know how when you're asleep, time really isn't a thing? So you just sleep and you just wake up, and in that 8 hours or 9 hours or 10 hours, it felt like time just dissolved. And it's a bit similar with the flow state. Time just dissolves, right? You could have a 4-hour deep work session, and all of a sudden the 6 hours, they go by, and it's like you teleported from time to time. And that's just the beauty of flow state. That is the beauty of focus. If you want to build anything meaningful in life, you need to hone this skill. So if that means watching this video again, taking notes while you're watching this video, whatever it is, this is one skill that will never leave you. So we talked about the triggers for flow, the motivators for flow, beta, alpha, and gamma waves. We talked about the requirements for flow state, the 4% rule, setting intentions, breaking down your task to make it super digestible and easy, and also the power of visualization that athletes use to achieve high performance. We talked about creating a space for focus, eliminating distractions, and priming yourself for deep work. Now, the icing on the cake here, the thing that's gonna pull everything and bring it together, is that systems beat anything. You see, I'm just a regular guy who was hyper competitive. I played everything from Fortnite super competitively, and I played Valorant, I played CSGO, I played all these games, even FIFA back in the day. And the truth is, I was super focused. I was so determined on winning. I was so hyper competitive. And I think actually part of that video game drive actually translates into real life to help you succeed in business, in personal life, in physique, whatever it is. But then I just came across the challenges for focus, discipline, consistency, and I realized that it was hard to do. You know, it was hard to be disciplined and consistent and focused without a proper system. And that's why I developed, devised, and created the systems that work with and for me. And that's why I created Discipline OS, which is our private community. Over there, we go in depth into these systems. We share knowledge and we hold each other accountable through the bi-weekly calls, weekly comfort zone challenges, and precisely crafted video modules. Now, if that sounds like something you'd want to know more about, then click the link in the description box below and visit my site. We'll see you inside.